My Doctor Said What is a program for health information. Be careful that if you want treatment and diagnosis of disease, you need to go to your local healthcare provider. Hi, this is Dr. Frank with My Doctor Said What, episode 25. A couple fast facts. The American Heart Association has just this week released that there is a new medical condition because of the strong associations of these together. That's cardiovascular kidney metabolic syndrome, or CKM. So we know that with the rises in obesity, we've seen a rise in type 2 diabetes, in kidney issues, and in metabolic syndromes. So these three are tied together. So that's one of the reasons, one of the many factors of why you see these comorbid or diseases together. But they're all associated with the root cause of having excess weight. So another reason that we need to eat healthy and be careful about what we're doing. With that said, I'd like to say, especially this week in October, the world in chaos here with the attacks on Israel by Hamas and terrorist organizations. I just wish everyone well. Our prayers are with you for our friends. And it's not political at all. I don't want to see children or mothers or human beings at all hurt and killed. Our job is to make life better. And my heart goes out to them and my prayers go out to them and all those that are affected by this terrible tragedy. So I'd like to say that today. And I hope we stop hurting one another and start healing one another. So, interesting. I want to talk a little bit about mental health today. When you're born, you're not without personality. It exists in a fundamental form known as temperament. Your temperament consists of innate or inborn features like energy levels, mood, demeanor, and emotional responsiveness, and that drives the learning experience that you form your personality with throughout your life. Why is that important? Why that's really important, we always talk about nature versus nurture. Genetics loads the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. You've heard me say before, over and over. How much do we learn? How much is in us? We're born with a lens, and no two individuals are alike. Remember, there's genetic factors. You are what you are on the combination of your mother's, father's genes, which is different with every child, even with identical twins, because even your genetics can be exactly the same, but then there's epigenetic or outside genetic factors like phenotype, where there's how the proteins are formed. DNA instructs. It's kind of the computer that instructs how things are formed and made. But you can have different manufacturing processes, how the enzymes of proteins interact, and that's why you can get identical twins that look different and act different and have different personalities. Very similar, but different. So, and I'm talking about identical twins, those that are the same genetic material from one egg and one sperm. So here you'll see that in personality and temperament too. But you have a lens that you're born with that you'll look through, and your experiences will be looked at differently. That's why it's so important to get a lot of different perspectives. One of my favorite biblical sayings is there's safety in the counsel of many. And for leaders, whatever you're a leader in, whether you're in industry or you're a leader in an athletic group, or you're a leader in a social group, or you're a leader in whatever, you'll find that really smart leaders surround themselves with smart people and they listen. Being a good listener is a very rare talent these days. And it's probably one of the most important talents you'll ever develop. But when it comes to mental health, we need a couple things. First of all, you need socialization. The wider your circle is, the better that innate temperament will have a better lens to more accurately interpret the things you see, hear, and learn. And that's important because if you're a nervous person, that you have that temperament, you're born with it, easily agitated. You can see that in some babies. And I'm not talking about if there's a physical symptom. I'm just talking about some babies are just cranky more than others. And what you may find if there's not a physical underlying cause, that temperament's there. But if that baby is constantly grows up around nervous, anxious people, then it's going to be a really hard cycle to break as they get older. Now, I am not a mental health professional, and I would ask you to go to your mental health professionals for any kind of treatment or diagnosis if you have anxiety disorder or some of these other things. I'm just talking about if your temperament is to be anxious. There's things you can do, things to your socialization will make a huge difference. Isolation is always a really bad thing. You need to have a good sleep cycle, and we've talked about that before. Good nutrition, good sleep cycle, good exercise, minimize your stress. You say, how do you do that? Well, I've lived the life when you go to school 11 years and you work and go to school and you have several jobs in your lifetime and you have leadership roles. Those things can all be stressful, but it's not. Stress is something that you produce internally. The outside circumstances are not they're stressors, but how you process them, how you respond to them is what you have in your toolbox and your capability and your innate personality. Through learning, you can learn to better manage that stress, to realize when it's getting to you and when you do need help. You got to be careful. You know, some people just kind of tough it through things, and other people become victims. They let an incident in their life constantly make them a victim. We had a great, believe it or not, a church sermon on that today, which I thought was awesome because you don't hear that in churches very often. Sometimes churches are not the safe places they're supposed to be because they think it's all a spiritual issue and then they don't understand the physical issue. You can have hormone imbalances. You can have pain, chronic pain. You can have brain chemistry differences throughout life. You can be affected by medications, prescription or non-prescription, abuse or non-abuse, just side effects. So all those things, a great healthcare provider will look at those and talk to you and determine whether you need some additional help. But the way that you can help yourself, like I said, is learn how to pray or meditate or whatever you want to call it. But there's time when you need to really think outside yourself into a higher power, that you need to learn how to breathe deeply, to sleep well, to turn off. And my daughter, social psychologist, is good about that. You can't turn things off. You can't turn your mind off. But when you go to bed, don't try to solve tomorrow's problems or today's problems, whether it be a plumbing leak or a big meeting or a client in need. You've got to switch channels. Think of something pleasant that you enjoy, the beach or being out fishing or golfing or doing something with your kids or grandkids or with your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whatever. The pleasant places, you need to think about those. And sure, it'll want to switch back to that stressful channel, but you've got to force yourself to continue. And practice makes perfect, believe it or not, even mentally. When you do that, you can change channels, and it'll make a huge difference. You've got to have good, decent, uninterrupted sleep. And if you're a new mother or father, I get that that's not going to happen for a while, and it's going to be tough. But I'm saying generally, for those of you that have swing shift jobs, which we've learned that that's not a good idea from a lot of health perspectives, but if you have to do that, that's tough because your circadian rhythms are always off if you're switching from first shift to second shift to third shift or whatever on a constant basis. You need to stick with one. And, you know, as humans, most of us are good at first shift. There are some night owls that circadian rhythms are better to be awake at night. But in general, it's nice to have a routine schedule, to get your 8 hours of sleep, to have a schedule that's pretty set as far as your sleeping hours, your waking hours, your routines. If you're if you're a morning person and you like to exercise, try to do it in the mornings when you have the energy. If you want to get your most productive work done, I do definitely my best work in the mornings. In the afternoons, I'm just not near as sharp, or I don't think as well or as quickly. Whereas my son, he's very much a night owl. He works well under pressure, and he works late at night much better than in the mornings. So you need to figure out your rhythms and look at that. And then let me tell you the really important part, I think, that we miss a lot as health practitioners, as wellness informers, as mental health, physical health providers, and even as the spiritual community of churches, is there's another component even beyond the physical and the spiritual and the mental. And I think you got to have purpose in your life. It's really important that you have purpose. And I used to advise my students at the university and say, sit down and think about what you're really good at. And you say, I'm not good at anything, or I'm good at all these things. You really have a few things, maybe one or two things that you're really good at. That's math, English. You're really good with tools or angles or carpentry, or you really understand electricity, or you're good with physics, or you're great with sports, or whatever. You need to think about what you're really good at, and then find where your passion is and where those two cross, because alone, talent or ability without passion doesn't get you very far in life, and passion without ability or talent. I'm not a great singer. I love singing, but I'm not great at it, so I'm never going to make a living at singing. But I understood that early on. And so you need to look at where your passion and your abilities cross. And that's where you need to put the energies of your life, because I believe you're on this earth to do something. And like Elon Musk has shown, you need to do something that's unique. You're a unique person. You can do unique things. And you say, well, I work at whatever, this plant A or B, and I don't have much ability to be creative. You do. You do. Whether you turn a hobby into a successful business, or you're a fantastic employee and you really make better cars or widgets or whatever, there's something you can do, and you're uniquely qualified to do it. And you have to find that passion and that ability and where they meet and do something with it. James Brown, I love it. He said, I feel good like I knew that I would now. I feel good like I know that I should now. Let me tell you, you'll feel good if you have purpose in life. And if you have issues, and sometimes you can have hormonal imbalances, physical issues, something you're not even aware of, something, lack of sleep, you need to see your primary health care provider, speak to them intelligently, carefully, ask questions, and then if you need help from a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist, then you need to take that step. And you need to, if there's not a physical underlying issue that you can solve, then you need to deal with those issues. And that's very, very important. So today, that's my lesson, is you be you, the best you can be. And that starts up here and here. So you need to think about that and make sure you don't have issues that are clouding that. And if you're really, you can even have a vitamin deficiency or a nutritional deficiency that can cause issues mentally or emotionally. You can't deal with things. And sometimes you're just flat overwhelmed. And you need to step back and take a reassessment of where you're going, what you're interested in, what you're doing. And remember, failure is the only way to truly have success. You've got to learn from failure. Everybody fails. Everybody fails. Failure is not, people say failure is not an option. Failure is an option. It's an absolute standard option. You're going to run into it in your life. And look at it, learn from it, and become the best you can be. This is Dr. Frank with My Doctor Said What? And I'm on all major platforms, my YouTube podcast, but I'm also, you can find me on Amazon, iHeart, Apple, all those podcast stations. Have a great day. Good to see you again. Have a great holiday season. Remember, send your comments and questions to Dr. Frank at mdswpod@gmail.com.